Kate Mason has an extensive background in welfare and community development. She's spent the last 3 years researching global narratives that are leading us toward a dystopian world of surveillance. Writing at Substack, Kate is a member of Community Voice Australia, which advocates for government and public-private partnership transparency. And we're here to talk about something we've talked about here before, and there's a kind of a link here, managed retreat. So Kate Mason, welcome to Reality Check Radio. Welcome back to my show, particularly our breakfast show. Nice to have you on.
Thank you, Paul. Lovely to be here.
Now, I think I have it right. You heard maybe an interview from this program, which would have been, I don't know, towards the end of last year, let's say. And that was with a resident of Kapiti Coast, which is north of Wellington, about 30, 40 Ks. And the issue of really under the heading of managed retreat that they were facing. There were properties in that area that had been kind of put in danger zones for flooding and for coastal erosion, etc. And they were finding that, the council were pushing them on this, that in LIM reports, which is very necessary for, buying and selling of property, that these hazards were being listed there. It was affecting property values, and people were reporting at that time, and it's since increased and in more places, starting to become a real issue, problems with getting insurance and affecting house settlements and loans and crikey, all of those things. So it's interesting you heard that. When you heard that, what did you go and do?
Well, I got very alarmed, and because nothing is happening in any country organically. So I went and looked at the Australian government and managed retreat and just what was happening there, and found that this was about a month ago. So I found it was all sitting there in government documents, managed retreat, climate risks, climate assessments. I found on the World Economic Forum the Climate Council of Australia's paper, Uninsurable Nation, 1 in 25 homes uninsurable in Australia by 2030. Had a look through there at their mapping. They've got a map in there that you can press on and put your postcode in. Realise that a huge chunk of New South Wales will be potentially is at high risk according to their modelling. And so just went on from there to look at, that it's actually just sitting there. So that's what happened then. So that was about a month ago. Then I went to my local council. They had a waterway. I can't remember the exact title of it, but they're looking at their plans for the water. So I live near the coast. So they're looking at their waterway planning, and managed retreat was up on the board. So this isn't anything I'd kind of heard about managed retreat, but suddenly it's front and centre, and nobody really registered in the room, but I saw it on this slide, and I went up and asked the council people and state government people that were there, what modelling do they rely on, and just to get, really clear. And they were really excited I was asking about managed retreat because I don't think anyone knows about it. So they thought that I might be really into it. But I
like positive, supporting it.
Yeah, no, they're super positive. They're super So
they've been persuaded. Someone's come along and sold them. And I don't like to use the word or the term brainwashing, but, there must be, for people to be so enthusiastic, because that seemed to be the case back here. The council people who were representing at these meetings, which was really a persuasion effort on the locals, really believed it.
Yeah.
It's like they'd been programmed,
Yeah, and I asked the state government person how they're assessing this, and he said it's off Fort Denison. So they have water I said, how do you know about the ocean rising? What are you using? And he said Fort Denison, 3 millimetres a year rise for the last 100 years. And so I challenged him because I've been...
3 millimetres, people can't see, but that's about about the thickness of one of those cheese slices or something.
Yeah, for the last 100 years.
Yeah, 100 years. Yeah.
And I asked someone at council what their modelling was. They said the CSIRO, which is our scientific body, and they actually, I don't know what year it was, there was big controversy there because the CEO of the CSIRO fired, probably around 2019, he fired a huge amount of scientists and said, we're done with climate change modelling, we need to go to climate change mitigation.
Oh, so that, as far as they were concerned, that was all bag tagged, done.
Yep, done.
No more debate required.
No.
Wow. Gee.
So I had all of this on my radar. I argued with the state government guy. I said, you do know about Rockefeller and the natural asset markets, which I'll probably get to talk a little bit about later, where they want to trade nature and put it on the stock market, which I think is going to be what they're going to do with the land once we're pushed off it. And so
this is the other thing, sorry to keep butting in, but it's all great land.
Yeah.
It's the land that people want to be on. You know, it's coastal. It's,
Yeah.
you know, and lovely little valleys and stuff like that. It's the land people just coincidentally, the land people like.
It is. And there's more coincidentally I'd like to talk about with my area, other plans that are coming in that I think are linked.
Well, we'll go for that and then maybe talk about that other point, you know.
Yeah. So I think it came out on Friday, the State Disasters, is New South Wales, Australia State Disaster Mitigation Plan 2024 to 2026, and they're taking a multi-hazard technical risk assessment towards this plan. So that means they look at all the risks that it could possibly happen and then bundle it all together for your area and then assess how much trouble your area is in. So it's all just expected. It's sort of an insurance company's definition of an average annual loss, and it's an expected loss. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. So, you know, it can be, as I was saying to you before, it can be low risk for bushfire, low risk for flooding, low risk for whatever else. But it can take all of those risks are compounded until you get into a medium to high risk layer.
Yeah, but they all have to happen at the same time.
Not necessarily. They don't seem to say that.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's just so.
What are the chances of that anyway?
Yeah, I know. So then they talk about how this all needs to come down to strategic land use planning, and this needs that difficult decisions are going to be made. And then we get in. We had a quick look at a New South Wales Reconstruction. The New South Wales Reconstruction Agency was formed, I think authority was formed in December 2022, and they sit under the Act. So the New South Wales Reconstruction Authority Act was made in 2022. So I had a quick look through about what they're doing. So they've got the obligations of looking after disaster prevention, preparedness and adaptation, and then the recovery and reconstruction following the disasters. And disasters are natural disasters, bushfire, coastal hazards, cyclones, earthquakes, floods, heat waves, landslides, severe...
Oh, heat waves.
Heat waves, yeah.
Okay.
Tornadoes and tsunamis. And that's what they do. So they're
What about locusts? Have they got that? Locusts?
No, they don't have locusts.
Oh, okay. I missed that one.
But they can but they're also tasked with the recovery, which to me would be working hand in hand with developers to create resilient housing, to stack and pack us into resilient housing.
Oh, I got it. Yeah. All right.
And then,
so they're involved in all from beginning to end in the whole chain,
right
up to building new dwellings, different sort of dwellings on once prime land that people have basically been drop kicked out of.
Or just 20 kilometres away from the coast,
yeah.
I would imagine. So they have the right to direct local council, and they will work with private corporations. So they just set all of this up, and they have a fund, that they're co-investment plans with, the perfect public-private partnership.
Okay, so this is government coming or state coming together with corporations. There's a definition that covers that, by the way.
Yes, which is supposedly really, really good for us now. Used to be something we worried about, but now it's front and centre, and corporations are more trusted than government, and we should just trust them to look after us. So they can compulsory acquire land off us, and they can then sell that land.
Wow.
Yeah, this is all in the Act. So they've just got complete power.
And can override council. So your representation means nothing in the end, obviously.
No, they direct council. So they go on to say, and then of course it's got all the building codes and standards are being implemented, which of course makes housing much more expensive to buy, but then you also have to retrofit your house. So not only is your insurance going up steadily because they might have just clamped something down on your area as being, really high climate risk. So you're going to have really high insurance if they even let you live there. And then you've also got to retrofit your house. So, land taxes are going through the roof here as well, people's cost of living as it would be in New Zealand. So you're just squeezing a whole bunch of people out of the market as well.
Well, maybe they don't want people owning it. Maybe they want you renting it and being happy.
I think that is exactly what they want.
So ownership is like a dying concept now.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And they talk about large-scale managed relocation. So this isn't small. They're saying
tens, hundreds of thousands, kind of big
haven't
population.
given a number. We'll find out mid next year as to that's when their policy will come out as to what this planned, management will look like. So it is very disturbing. It's happening very, very quickly. Now, where I live on the Central Coast is the number one risk. Number one most risk.
Oh no, you're in like the epicenter, are you?
I'm in the epicenter, which is just coincidentally in the transition to being transformed into a global smart mega city.
Oh gosh, you got that too.
Yeah, we got that too, and I think they're working hand in hand actually. So that's where we're up to. That's kind of where I've gotten up to, and then I've just had a look at some of the think tanks that are behind, think tanks and funders who are behind.
Yep, the experts.
The experts, the industry experts. So yeah, that's where I'm up to. But there's a lot.
So is there any pattern there? Anyone that anyone's ever heard of?
Yes.
Or have made stunning contributing announcements for the good of humankind before?
Yes, there's some big players behind it. So we have the Committee for Sydney, which I can hardly find anything out about, but they formed in 2003, but they're an urban policy think tank that advocates for the whole of Sydney, and they have their memberships are people like Amazon, banks, the big four consultancy corporations, Jacobs, which is involved in New Zealand's mitigation plans, housing companies, building companies, infrastructure companies, energy companies, CSIRO, and then local councils, non-government organisations. They're all in there. There's about a list of, 80, 100 partners in there, and they're opening it up to global partners as well. I mean, there are already global partners in there, but they really want to have more global partners. But they put out a paper, Committee for Sydney paper, Defending Sydney, Adaptive Planning for Today's Flooding and Tomorrow's Climate Risks. I couldn't find when they put that out, but they referenced the New South Wales Government Mitigation Plan. And that paper was completed in partnership with infrastructure consultancy firm, an insurance firm, and Resilient Sydney. So I'll come back to Resilient Sydney because they're massive players in all of this, as they would be in New Zealand. So they talk about a lot of things, but that preparing plans to reduce the impact of floods and other disasters will require trade-offs between and within communities and decisions by service providers about when and how to invest. So that we need all this investment in, and it's going to be some trade-off between and within communities. Now, I don't know what that means, but I don't.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Bode well. There's a lot of not knowing really what's being said, but what is a trade-off and who's making that decision about the trade-off? It'll be the corporations investing, of course.
Yeah. The scary thing, it is a little bit scary, is that, that Sydney NGO or whatever that you just mentioned before, yeah. It's been around since 2003, which means this is my reptilian brain working. This has been worked on for a long time. The on-ramp to this has been decades in the making. No wonder you take a look and you realize everything's in place. This has been, do you think I'm right in that? Is that?
No, I think you're 100% right. I think, there's I'm still getting my head around it. I'm now honing in on the planetary health model by Rockefeller because I think it all
planetary health.
Yeah, planetary health model. I think everyone needs to get really clear about the planetary health model. It all sits under this with the climate change. And I'll get on to, because I mentioned Resilient Sydney, they are Rockefeller funded. And Rockefeller's, a lot of the stuff I'm looking at now, I'm going Rockefeller. All the different elements of what's coming in are very much around Rockefeller. Not saying Rockefeller's the only player.
Yeah, but if there's lockstep, it'll be coming from somewhere.
It's definitely all coming from somewhere. So this Sydney committee, they talk about land use needing to be changed, and that they talk about what you talked about before, that a planning certificate. At the moment in Australia, we don't have. It only provides information on planning controls. But it doesn't, and they're talking about it needs to actually have on there your certificate about any potential climate risks in your area, which of course will then be very problematic for people.
There's your trade-off.
Now, these guys, so I mentioned how we're becoming a global megacity. So these guys, they're not City of Sydney, the Committee for Sydney, they actually were part of, I came across just now because I've been looking at this. So we're part of a 6 cities region, which goes for hundreds and hundreds of kilometres. And we're all like 6 different areas. So the Central Coast is one of the 6. And we are going to be like a agri-food area.
Oh, it's already been mapped out, has it?
Yeah, we're going to be health. We're going to be a few things. I can't quite remember all of them, but so Parramatta area will be the IT hub area. So we've all got like these different things. So we're traditionally, the Central Coast is the food hub for Sydney. So they're just going to take this up a notch into, I would say, the completely synthetic food that we're going to be growing. We're going to have the synthetic food.
Wow, that's so. The planning is. Well, it's beyond what I even thought.
It's very comprehensive. It's very comprehensive. So these guys are saying they actually were behind the 6 cities. That was their idea.
Oh, okay.
So here's where I'm starting to go, okay, now I'm starting to understand the 6 cities model more.
Right.
And it's all this climate change. So where the Central Coast is, we've got a lot of bushland still. We're not developed like Sydney. So you could actually do a whole raft of development here and actually move people to a bigger complex.
Wow. Okay.
They call me a conspiracy theorist, but that's just that they're the little dots that are starting.
Well, if it's that's where it takes you.
Yeah, that's where it takes me to, and it's what they're saying. That's what they're saying when they say this big think tank who sets out, gives policies to government. And the government, I reckon, the government's New South Wales government's plan is pretty much these guys' plan.
Yeah,
they've just whatever else. So you've got them, and they're behind the 6 cities idea, which is a smart mega city. We've got Amazon that's just moved in, to our local area. So you got
all your local businesses.
Yep.
The thing about it though is. It's all based on climate, isn't it? In the end, that's the golden key, right? Because that's what is being held over as the threat, the disaster threat all the time. It's more extreme weather events, heat wave. There's been some awesome flooding. No wonder people worry about weather generation and where that comes from, because that would be a useful tool in this. That's another conversation. Yeah. But it's so well thought out. It doesn't feel good. I'd have to say it feels quite sinister. And surely the climate, if that's their vulnerability to making all this work, isn't it? Because if people believe that there is that climate problem, they'll accept all this, won't they?
They will. Look, and the other thing for me, because I very much care about the natural environment, like I think most people do. And so I spent a lot of last year trying to fight them putting poison, or they killed all the bees in New South Wales, and then they put poison down everywhere. And I spent last year trying to fight that with another group. And I was just like, why do people not care about poison and poisoning the whole environment? And then they want to talk about the climate.
We have the same thing here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware, we poison for possums, which is
I do know.
one of your indigenous species, and we have lovely bush out there. And again, it's the same kind of construction of an argument. You say, well, the natural forest bush is it's crammed full of possums. They're eating everything. Well, actually, no. It turns out one possum per square kilometre at the most concentrated. So we can't put people in the bush because it's too much of a physical effort, and it's hard to reach, etc. So what we do is we drop 1080 poison. 1080 is the most poisonous substance in the world into the bush, right? And then you've got environmentalists supporting it, and they'll say, and there's no logic in it, they'll say, well, they'll believe that we can't get in there physically and it's the only thing we can do, and they'll put up a wall in there thinking that there's no way that native species of bird and all the other critters, they're not going to touch this stuff, so that's all right. No, they get wiped out as well. Okay, so
of course they do.
What can you do?
I don't know, but it's like nothing makes sense really on if you just even look around. But the other part, I think it's really important. So Rockefeller funded the Resilient Cities Network, and that became Sydney and Melbourne. And I think maybe one of your cities in New Zealand, but I haven't looked at that. But they've got the 100 Cities Initiative, and that was formed in 2013. And so this has also crafted this resilience model that's coming in. And when they talk, I just want to get the definition of resilience because...
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is from the Rockefeller City Resilience Framework, 2014. It moves away from traditional disaster risk management, which is founded on risk assessments that relate to specific hazards. Instead, it accepts the possibility that a wide range of disruptive events, both stresses and shocks, may occur, but are not necessarily predictable.
Wait on.
That's their definition.
I might get out of bed tomorrow morning. Then again, I might not. I might.
So they don't even have to they don't even have to really prove it under that definition.
That's just making it up.
Yeah, I know. It's just making stuff up.
Crikey. Okay, so do you see any big waking up happening here? It's starting to sort of happen here a bit, only because people are starting to realise it head on. And they're like, wow, okay, got to deal with this. But
well, we're going to piggyback off your Under Community Voice, because I'm very thankful that you've got 2 groups already set up and looking at the modelling and working on that. So I really appreciate that. So we will be working Under Community Voice, because we will take this on as a project. This is massive, and so we'll be working in partner. We'll do what we can, and I'm just really thankful someone's ahead of us in it. So. Yeah. So that's it. I don't think I've put up 3 different articles about it and, some Facebook posts. I'm not getting much traction on it. It's like I would have thought people would be screaming about this.
I don't understand why they don't.
Well, I think if they don't do it about this, then I think there's not much else they're going to do it about after that. Yeah.
And the other thing, of course, is the other lever there is the denial of insurance. That's a trump card.
Yeah, you can't, and then you can't sell your place for very much, can you?
No, or you can't buy another place unless you can have insurance. It's starting to happen here for people. They're starting to realise, they're closing in on a deal for a house, and I can't get insurance. The bank is saying, well, if you can't get insurance, so crikey. Okay, so on the pessimism meter, Kate, where's the needle for you?
About whether or not they can do it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Given everything's in place now, it's all the pieces seem to be kind of in place. I think people aren't very well informed,
No, they're not. We've got a year before they're going to bring up their managed retreat policy to try to get some, this on people's radar.
Not very far.
No. So I don't know, but I think it's worth a go.
Oh, of course. Okay.
That's my thing. I mean, the more I've looked, over the last few years, a couple of years ago, I went, I need to work out what the hell's going on, what's happening. And so I have spent the last 2 years absolutely looking and getting getting as much as I can over what's the global arena.
Yeah.
And, I guess we've got only a couple of things. You either be scared and you don't put your head up and you don't say anything and you just try to, And that also could be clever. You just sort of go, okay, I'm going to stay under the radar and try and navigate my way around this.
You won't be able to, though.
No, that's not. That's
The manoeuvring room space will be very small.
No, and also now they've got the capacity to move you off any land they want to
That's
under
right.
this climate change. So yes, so I just think whatever, I'm in there and I'm going to keep banging away, basically. And I really think the thing that I've come to now is that if we can at least give the message, don't turn on each other. Don't allow them to divide us and use the divide and conquer thing. So the next time they really frighten people, we actually don't scapegoat each other. We actually stay together as a people and keep our humanity and our, I don't know, don't let them do it to us.
Yeah.
And then we have to keep an eye on who's actually benefiting. I mean, Rockefeller, I think it was $30 billion in profits last year. I mean, seriously, are we going to all turn on each other and allow these guys, to be managing us all behind the scenes?
Well, we turned on each other to varying degrees recently.
Yeah, I know.
I hear what you're saying. It's good advice.
Mm.
All right. Nice to chat with you, Kate. Thanks for coming on. Kate Mason, Australian blogger and activist and member of Community Voice Australia. And if people want to get to your Substack, Kate?
They can just search Kate Mason Substack. It'll come up.
Okay. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to RCR, Reality Check Radio. Do you like what you're listening to or dislike what you're listening to? Either way, we want to hear from you. Get in touch with us now. You can text us with your message to 2057. That's 2057. Or email us at inbox@realitycheck.radio. We'd love to hear from you, so connect with us today.